Hey there, today we are doing a fun project. This is my silhouette cameo with the pen attachment, drawing a beautiful design that I'm going to trace on an acrylic blank. And everything's linked into the description so you can see where I got all of this. And we are going to attempt to create some resin imitation stained glass. So you can choose any design that you want. This is just a design that I found in my search that I thought would look really nice. A more simple design would be even faster. And I'm just using imitation lead in a little squirty bottle and that I got on Amazon. So let's get started. So now that we have all that traced out, I'm going to let that dry for 24 hours. And then we're using the JDiction 4-hour demold. And the reason why I'm using the 4-hour demold is because it's a nice thick resin. And I feel like a lot of projects that have been done similarly to this, it leaks underneath. And the thicker the resin, I think, the better for less leakage. So I picked colors that already sort of have a little yellow tint to them. As resin sits in the sun, the resin will yellow. No matter what resin you use, even if it does have UV protection, eventually, years down the road, it will yellow a little bit eventually. So the resin will probably yellow and the pigments will probably fade in the sun. So I picked pigments that it's not going to affect the overall look of the piece over time. So this yellowy, orangey, pink color is going to either yellow or fade through time, but it will still be a nice yellow or still be a nice pink color. So it's not going to affect the piece. It's just going to slightly change over time. And then this green color will probably fade or deepen depending on what happens in the future with the resin. So any of these colors that I'm using, if they yellow, it will just deepen the color probably and look really good. And if the pigment fades over time, the Let's Resin pigments are really good. So I don't foresee them fading a lot, but if they do, it will just be a slightly more muted color and not necessarily ruin the whole thing and make it look horrible. So that's why I picked these colors, because no matter what happens in time, whether the pigment fades or the resin yellows, it's still going to look like a really good art piece down the road. It's not going to totally ruin the whole thing. So I'm just putting little dots of resin in here and swishing it around with a little toothpick, and that seems to work really, really well. Less is more. Don't overfill these little areas in here. Put less than you think you need, and then you can add more later. And it so far is not leaking underneath of the design. So I am so excited that this is actually working. And it did take me a little while, so my resin kind of hardened up and made it even better because it was thicker and a lot easier to work with. So it did take me a little while to fill all these little spots, and that was totally fine. And it just looks so pretty. And I am trying to decide whether I wanted to do a background on this. I thought it looked gorgeous the way it was. And here I am like, oh, do I really want to do this? And I decided in the end that I totally did. And I'm glad I did because it did finish the piece off. I thought about leaving the clear acrylic background, but in the end, I chose this really nice yellow. And again, this yellow, if it fades, will just be a lighter shade of yellow. And if the resin yellows, it'll just be a deeper shade of yellow. So just carefully popping any bubbles that came up. So now with the hard part done, I'm just going to let this cure and cover it up so I don't get any dust or cat hair in there. I always get cat hair in there. I don't know. Cats aren't allowed in that room, and there's cat hair everywhere. So after it was cured, I decided that I didn't really like what it looked like when it was finished with that kind of crackly edge where the resin meets the lead. I think it just is the way that it works. So I wanted it to be smooth, so I am doing a flood coat of just clear resin. And I'm moving it towards the edge just to make sure that it meets the edge but doesn't go over the edge. So I'm slowly adding it and pushing it towards the edge so that way everything is covered and it's a nice smooth finish. You can leave it the way that it was before if you don't mind that, but I wanted to have a really nice flat finish on the front and shiny and beautiful. So I did add the top coat. And then just making sure that everything is good, checking around the edges, making sure all of the resin is to the edge, and then just popping bubbles with a long neck lighter. And we're going to let that cure again. And then I'm drilling some holes I used my Dremel and drilled some little holes, just placed them where I thought it would look good. And I had some chain here that I just got from the store. It's just jewelry chain. And I will link everything in the description. And I drilled some hole in the edge of the acrylic blank, and you will see the edge of it, but that's fine. It didn't bother me at all. It needs something to hang from. So I'm just screwing these in very carefully, and here's the finished product. It looks gorgeous. This is probably the prettiest thing I've ever made. I will say that I did mess up drilling the holes a little bit, but honestly, it doesn't really detract that much from the finished project. But this is beautiful. I can't wait to see how it ages. I think it will do just fine. And in the meantime, I will enjoy it. And it is beautiful. And if you've done something like this before, please let me know how it went for you and what you did or what you would have done different. I would love to know. And please like and subscribe and come back for more. Bye.